Hello, and welcome back to the Emergency Traffic Podcast, where we review and discuss events leading to the tragic line of duty deaths of firefighters and paramedics, providing a platform to raise awareness of the lessons identified in these ultimate sacrifices while performing our duty to the communities we serve. My name is Paul, and I'm the host of the new podcast. Thank you for joining us today. I have my co-hosts, Doug and Dirk, joining me. You can listen to us on Spotify and Anchor FM and Stitcher and Apple Podcasts. And you can follow us on Twitter at podcasttraffic@twitter.com or visit our Facebook page at Emergency Traffic Podcast. You can email us at emergencytrafficpodcast@gmail.com. How are you guys doing, Doug and Dirk?
Doing real good.
Good. What's happening these days? Getting out of the cool weather, back into some warmer weather?
Yeah, it's getting warm. It's just same old. Two kids, like busy.
Yeah. How's work?
Well, that's good. It's
yeah.
Steady as always. Yep.
Good. Been to any hockey games lately?
I have not, but maybe coming up soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sold a bunch, and then COVID. I got a refund for some tickets, so I haven't been. But just watch them on TV and yell at the TV.
Right. Yell at the TV. How about you, Dirk?
Yeah, everything's good. I'm home alone with my two cats. That's better than two kids.
Right on.
And my teenager is still at school, so they'll be home in about a couple hours here.
We were at that pet store yesterday, but we made it out without taking a kitten home, so that was good.
No,
I had to get some dog food, and the kittens were so cute. Hey, wasn't there a big thing in soccer yesterday or something? Leeds versus I can't remember which one. My son was talking about it. You're a soccer guy.
I'm a soccer guy, but I'm very local. Same reason I don't watch the French ice hockey league.
You
I'm only watching the German soccer league.
The German soccer league. Oh, yeah. Okay.
On a positive note, my least favorite team got knocked out of the Europa League. So maybe that's something he mentioned. So
okay.
But it makes me happy. You know, when my team is successful, we always strive on the misfortune of other teams. So
right. And I'm waiting for Formula One to start.
No Russia GP this year.
I just saw that. I just read that. No Russian GP. Good. So, yeah, first race is the 25th February. Hey, Doug, that's where the cars actually turn both ways?
Oh, don't you worry. NASCAR turns both ways now, too.
Oh, right. Oh, so they made a change.
In NASCAR, the drivers drive the cars instead of the computers.
Oh, nasty. Yeah. Okay. Well, we better get on with the podcast then. On that note.
Yeah.
So this week, we're going to explore the tragic events of March 17th, 2005. This is a Canadian one this time, where two firefighters died while fighting a fire in a hardware store, or actually in a building adjacent to a hardware store, in the northern Canadian city of Yellowknife, Northwest Territories. As I've stated before in the podcast, detailed and published information on most Canadian line of duty deaths is difficult to find or access. We do not have the American-style National Institute of Occupational Health and Safety, or NIOSH, which investigates and provides reports and recommendations on firefighter line of duty deaths. Most Canadian line of duty death reports are conducted by provincial occupational health and safety agencies and are not available to the public. I've pieced this podcast together from various media reports and stories that I've found just from some online research. I remember this event fairly well. In fact, Doug and I, did you and I go to one of the funerals in Calgary?
No, this happened before I got in the fire.
Okay, I think I went to the funeral in Calgary for the one firefighter, Kevin Olson. Anyway, first,
I think Doug just graduated high school.
Right, that's true.
I graduated 2004, so 2005 was right after. Yeah.
Right, yeah. And I graduated in 1980. So there.
Yeah, my parents weren't even married yet.
Okay. Well, that's what makes the podcast good. It's a variety of viewpoints that we can discuss. And that'll be coming up soon in our bonus episode, the Tailboard Talks, where we're going to debate various subjects of interest to firefighters. So look
Can't wait for that one.
Yeah, that'll be good. We'll get some European stuff in there too, right, Doug or Dirk? Okay, so back to Yellowknife. A little bit about the community. The city of Yellowknife is the capital of the Northwest Territory of Canada, and it's its only city. It's located on the northern shore of Great Slave Lake, about 400 kilometers south of the Arctic Circle. The original community settlement was founded in 1934, when, like many western and northern frontier towns, gold was found in the area. Until 1953, Yellowknife was managed by the Canadian federal government, and then it became its own municipality, and in 1967, it became the capital of the Northwest Territories. Until 2012, Yellowknife did not have a year-round road connection to the rest of Canada, and it depended on ice road bridges and ferries to get across the Mackenzie River. The population of Yellowknife, a year after the fire in 2006, according to Statistics Canada, was 18,736. The City of Yellowknife operates the Yellowknife Fire Division, which was established in 1943. The Fire Division provides the City of Yellowknife an area with fire and emergency response service. In 2013, which is the oldest year I found published data from the division on the website, responded to about 3,000 calls for service, a majority of which were pre-hospital medical care responses. Currently, the division is a career service with about 36 uniformed personnel, including chiefs and deputy chiefs. Operating out of the Taylor Road Fire Station, which was built in 1989. At the time of the incident, the division operated the following apparatus according to FireWiki. They had a 2004 Spartan Smale 75-foot aerial quint and a 1993 International General Body Rescue. General Body's located in Edmonton there. They really don't build many fire apparatus anymore. And Spartan Smale, of course, is still around, been absorbed into the Rev group as the emergency vehicle side. They had a 1989 International West Tank tanker and a 1985 Superior International pumper, sort of the old cab over Cargo Star pumper. It didn't look like they had any other apparatus according to FireWiki at that time, and they bought some new apparatus soon after. And I'm also not sure if they were all full-time at the time, or a combination department. I couldn't find a lot of info from around then on this.
They also have ambulances. They provide the ambulance service in the.
Do they do transport too, or?
I think so. I think
Maybe.
I've seen pictures online of ambulances for them.
Yeah, later on in the pod here, they talk about the new fire chief coming in after the event, and he was previously in Swift Current, where they had 700 calls a year, and he's moving to this department, going to 3,000. But again, most of it is medical. Similar to your department. A lot of departments are doing a lot of medical, but the transport is the difference. The actual incident at about 7, and we don't have a lot of information on here, so forgive us here. It's all we have. About 7:20 in the morning on March 17th, 2005, Yellowknife Fire Division was called to the Home Building Center lumberyard on the old airport road, where police had noticed a fire on the premises. The weather at the time was minus 16 Celsius, plus 3 Fahrenheit, with an east wind of 19 kilometers per hour, or 12 miles per hour. The firefighters who gave the ultimate sacrifice to their lives during this event were Lieutenant Cyril Fife, who had joined the Yellowknife Fire Division as a volunteer in 1987, and then a full-time as a career firefighter in 1989. He was promoted to lieutenant in 2002, and he had 18 years of service to the community when he died. Firefighter Kevin Olson had recently joined the division only 11 days before the incident that led to his tragic line of duty death. Firefighter Olson was a recent graduate of the Fire Etc. Emergency Services Technician Program at Lakeland College in Vermilion, Alberta. The fire itself was contained to a small building adjacent to the main hardware building center building. It was described as a shed, really. The shed was used to saw lumber that was ordered by customers into specified dimensions. They had lots of orders, I'm sure, that they were, cutting up and stuff like that. And so they had this saw shed just outside the building so that they could do all the cutting with a little bit of shelter from the northern Canadian winters. And yet it wouldn't be inside the store. The shed, according to reports, may have had lightweight wood truss roof. Not sure what type of roofing material was in place on top of the trusses, and we don't know the size of the shed. During the firefighting operations, firefighters were inside the shed attacking the fire. At the same time, there were firefighters on the roof of the shed. Some reports indicate that there was fire in the truss space that they were attacking. So it's almost like there was a ceiling inside underneath the trusses, maybe to keep the dust down from the sawdust and stuff. I don't know, but it looked like, they couldn't get at it. During the fire attack, the roof of the shed collapsed, with the firefighters on the roof falling into the interior below. Lieutenant Fife and Firefighter Olson were still attacking the fire below the now collapsed roof. Both firefighters were seriously injured during the collapse, and they were extricated from the saw shed and transported to a local hospital. Firefighter Olson died that day. Lieutenant Fife, who was in a coma, died about a week later. The owner of the business stated that there were a couple of electrical heaters in the ceiling area of the saw shed, and he suspected one of them may have caused the fire. I can only imagine, like, the saw sheds, usually they're, especially if it's sort of an open air shed, it might be full of sawdust and stuff like that. A lot of places like that have to have dust collection and evacuation systems, but I don't know if that building had that or not. I have no pictures of it or anything like that. So who's that, Doug?
Oh, someone came to the door, so Tiller's going nuts.
So that's Tiller, your dog?
Yeah.
As in Tiller, as in the fire department doesn't have any?
As in, yeah, Canada needs more. Yeah.
Canada
The
needs
only
more?
tiller truck Duck will ever have.
Only in my city is the one that I live with.
There you go, Quebec City. And there used to be lots of them. If you look at some of those history pictures and stuff down east, there was quite a few tillers. But yeah, I don't know of any in the rest of Canada. So back to the fire. The owners thought there was a couple of heaters in the ceiling or in the roof space, and they may have caused the fire. The incident was investigated by the Northwest Territories Workers' Compensation Board, who also enforces the Safety Act in the territory. This investigation was not made public, but upon conclusion, the investigation issued 12 orders to the city of Yellowknife by Workmen's Compensation Board. So obviously the investigation revealed a lot of potential deficiencies according to the Workers' Compensation Board, and they actually issued orders to the city to comply. Orders are similar to recommendations for those of you that don't know what an order is, but they have legislative requirements and they must be acted upon to the satisfaction of the board, or else you can have legal ramifications. In addition, individual charges were laid against the fire chief and the deputy fire chief of operations, who was in command at the scene of the fire, as a result of the investigation. Charges, this was through shockwaves throughout the fire service in Canada. Very rare that WCB would actually issue charges against the chief officers of a fire department, although it has happened, and there's legislation in Canada for corporations, for example. I believe the Westray mine in Nova Scotia, there was charges issued against some of the executive staff for some mine accidents that had happened there. So there was precedent. And so under that, they did issue the charges. The charges included failing to take reasonable precautions to ensure the health and safety of crews, and failing to properly instruct each worker in the safe performance of his or her duties. Some of the dozen orders that were issued by the WCB that we've read from media reports are as follows. The fire department managers and supervisors must be recertified to meet national safety standards. So there was a concern obviously with their training and certification, that they needed to actually get people recertified to meet those requirements, those job descriptions, I assume. They wanted them to create a full-time safety officer position within the department, trained to national standards. Now there is not really a national standard in Canada for a fire department safety officer. Many departments will use the NFPA 1521 course for that. Although then there's other safety courses, of course, for occupational health and safety. So anyway, that was one of the recommendations. Develop and implement a comprehensive department health and safety program. Conduct external audit of fire department operational procedures and guidelines to identify deficiencies and suggest corrective actions. Evaluate current training practices for gaps that may be present. Develop a procedure for all personnel responding to a call for firefighting duty, and an emergency recall system to be implemented shall include transmitting this information to the fire department dispatch center. So that leads me to believe, was there a question about not being inside the building, defensive, that didn't get to everybody? Or, you know, I'm not too sure. We can only go, we don't have play-by-play reports of the fire. In fact, in the agreements that were later on agreed to, WCB, part of the agreement was that the city would turn over all its records from the call. So there was obviously some issues in what was going on, and they were trying to get to the bottom of it. Review emergency scene management procedures and operating guidelines, and convey the results to local law enforcement officials and other government departments. So whether there are some coordination issues between other agencies. The department must do regular site and building inspections to familiarize yourself with hazards that they may encounter while performing their duties. So to me, that says pre-planning. So obviously WCB thought there wasn't enough pre-planning. Interesting, that's also coming up in the Grenfell inquiry in the UK. That's still ongoing, where the 74 people died. Sorry, Doug.
I think that that's a common thing in most fire departments. That, I mean, I don't think you're ever going to pre-plan every building in your area.
Right.
Even if you're a big city department and a company goes out, or a fire prevention officer, that's their only job is to do that. You're never going to keep up with every building in your area. And even if you do, their buildings are always changing. Like, this was a outside cut shed or whatever you want to call it. And maybe they did do a pre-plan. This wasn't even there when they did it. And then they come for the fire, and all of a sudden there's another part of the building, right?
Yeah, and past departments I've been involved, businesses will often erect other structures on what they consider their property, and not get building permits and stuff like that. Where I was before, they had large industrial areas that had, quite large properties within those industrial areas, and we found several occurrences of companies doing modifications, in fact, it was a surprise when they actually contacted me one time and said, hey, we're going to put a new fire suppression system in this control room, and we wanted to get your approval and stuff. And I kind of went, sorry, what? Yeah, well, that's a great idea. And I contacted the adjacent municipality, and they said the same thing. Oh, I've never been approached about that. And it was a new product that they wanted to use and stuff like that. So you're absolutely right, Doug, in that, how do we keep up with the changes that are ongoing? It makes me think of the recent injuries in Los Angeles, where it was an illegal marijuana or TBD oil extrication. They were using benzene or something like that, which is going to happen. And there were several firefighters injured in the explosions. How do you keep up with it, right? The ghost ship fire, look at that, San Francisco.
Well, and commercial occupancies are always changing too, right? Like, you can go do a pre-plan, and a year later, the business and what they're doing inside the building has completely changed. I've gone to where they're
supposed to get an occupancy permit for that, of course, to change of use. But how does that all work?
Down to the fire department, and gets down to the prevention officers and all that. I've been to calls where you get dispatched to a building, a company name, and the address is correct, but the name of the building's different just because it's changed. It takes time to figure that out, and yeah.
And just because they have a permit doesn't mean that we actually went there, right? So just because they have a permit doesn't mean that we know about it, right? There's still a difference between fire prevention and operations. So even if yeah, as Doug said, it's almost impossible to go everywhere, right? That's what makes like the East Coast more dangerous when it comes to structure fires, because they've been retrofit older building construction, right? Lots of void spaces. You can't keep up with that stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think Baltimore, I read something just the other day that they're talking about enacting a policy for the fire department that they're not allowed to go into vacant buildings. So, you know, but
they have an SUP about that, I'm pretty sure. But if a vacant building is on fire that has no power, no gas, and it's burning, somebody was inside. So the question is, how involved was it? And that's the survival space question, but that has nothing to do with the Yellowknife thing here. That was a shed on fire, and they should have never gone on the roof. Like, there was training at a call, basically, and that's why 2 people died.
And that's a big thing, you know, is that whole all the research. And I had this debate with my cousin the other day. He'll probably listen to the podcast, but you know, somewhere where there was a problem on the roof, and my answer was, why were they on the roof? Now, you and I know that ULFSRI and NIST have done all kinds of studies, and even a 4 foot by 4 foot a hole in the roof doesn't vent enough to with today's fuel, because it's changed. That's the big thing. With today's fuels, everything burns hotter and faster, and in the old days, venting the roof did help. And if you have an older building that doesn't have a lot of today's contents, maybe it does help. But now, with the amount of fuel, even just a stupid couch or you know, your TV and everything else in the living room, the fuel is so much. As soon as you give it air, you can't vent it fast enough for it not to go. And of course, and this shed being lightweight trusses with lots of dust and whatever burning, I mean, they're going to fail quickly. We don't know if they were exposed, if they had drywall or plywood, or shoot, some people would just like string up some plastic and staple it to the rafters, right? So those trusses are exposed. A little bit extra weight on there of the firefighters and whatever snow load they had in March, it's going to collapse. So yeah, you know, conduct debriefs in a timely manner is the recommendation after an incident regarding deficiencies, and make note of corrective measures implemented. So they may have found that they weren't doing after action reviews. I know in you know, me blue card, they say, you know, do your after action reports right after the fire while you're all together on the scene. It is so hard to do because so and so's got to get back for whatever, and you know, to keep the crews there to do that debrief and document it and pass that information around is so tough. I know, but again, WCB is saying obviously they didn't think there was a process to capture problems and communicate them to the group that they should have learned from previous calls. During the following, that's only 9 of them. I didn't have the other 3. I couldn't find them anywhere, the other recommendations. During the following months, the City of Yellowknife worked with WCB to comply with the orders. The City of Yellowknife fought the charges, so they agreed to comply with the order or the orders. But as far as the charges, they are defending their team, which is good. They fought the WCB with both the chief officers pleading not guilty to those charges. After extensive negotiations, the city and Workmen's Compensation reached what they call an alternative measures agreement, which the territorial court approved in October of 2006, so a year and a half after the call, and the charges were stayed. This complex year-long agreement included placing $300,000 in trust to pay for additional firefighter training for the next 10 years, and that training had to be approved and reported to the WCB. They wanted examination and training for some of the officers. In fact, it said examination and retraining for the deputy chief, and then more training in incident scene management and incident command procedures for all officers. So they're obviously detected some issues on the fire ground with exactly what you said, is why are they on the roof when there's guys inside the and it's a light shed, right? The building construction is the key there. They also had to acknowledge the responsibility for the response on 2017. The fire chief resigned subsequently. I didn't gather if the deputy chief resigned. And a new fire chief who was previously from Swift Current took over in 2008. I think a guy I know actually is the chief there now. He came from Prince Albert and Melfort, and I think he's the chief in Yellowknife now. Discussion, like I wrote here on the thing, it's a shed. And it reminds me of Porterville. Again, people didn't know where they were. The recommendations are similar. More training for firefighters, more training for officers, better communication systems with dispatch and to notify people what's going on. What are your guys' thoughts?
I think it's a very fire department, all things considered. And we talk in other podcasts about meeting like NFPA 1710 staffing and having the right number of guys on scene. I don't even think the fire department could do that with most of their fire department there. And for people that aren't familiar with Canada or the landscape, I think Yellowknife is a very rare city in North America that it's so isolated. Like I did a quick look on Google, and I think the next closest fire department is 100 kilometers away. So the next closest mutual aid is an hour away. So, and I'm sure it's a small city that doesn't get a whole lot of structure fires. So a lot of departments' budgets are cut and they're not getting the funding they used to get for things. Training's the easy thing to cut when you cut a budget. You can't cut guys, you cut training time. So it's not like the old days where you got your training just by getting experience. So I'm sure they did the best. They thought they were doing what they should be doing and were doing the best they could. And we're probably had the mindset of let's contain this fire to this shed and not let it spread to the bigger building, and then we have a fire we can't control. So
yeah, and unless you're a real nerd like us, maybe in studying, building construction and all this other stuff, you get your one night or one day of building construction in your firefighter training, and then it's whatever that. And if you didn't connect the dots between a lightweight truss roof of a shed that was involved, obviously, for a while by the time they got there, the potential failure of that roof, I guess, didn't go into the equation. You guys seen the video Phoenix did of the firefighters falling into the roof? They cut a couple of mannequins to a crane and they burnt the building and they waited for the roof to collapse. And there's a video online about that.
This fire sounds very similar to me to the super sofa store in Charleston. That fire started in a loading dock that wasn't really part of the main building, and it did spread to the main building, and then a furniture store and a lumber yard they both have massive fuel loads, and that fire got away from them, right? So this was before that, so they didn't have that in mind when they were there.
Right, that was 09, right? I think
it was 07.
07,
but,
yeah.
Yeah, like I did a quick look at Yellowknife, and they said that they have 7 guys on shift. So to go to a structure fire with 7 guys, if you put,
no matter how you cut it, you're not meeting 1710.
1710 says you should have 16 guys there on the first alarm.
Right, well, for a house.
Even if Yellowknife has, which they have paid on call people, but it says they only have 15 paid on call people. So who knows if they can come? And I mean, you're fighting an uphill battle right from anything bigger than a dumpster fire. You don't have enough guys for.
And my paid on call experience says from 7 o'clock till 9 o'clock in the morning is the absolute worst time to get responders because they're all on their way to work or dropping off the kids or whatever, and they can't leave to go to a call.
Yeah, I know. I mean, the difference between your paid on call experience and this is you were in a bedroom community for a lot of it where people worked out of town.
Yeah, but even going to their office.
So if they have to go, they're not
But even if they're getting their staff going for the day, you know, they're the manager, the supervisor at the wherever, they're kind of have obligations to their work and they can't leave right away, especially during that time of day.
For sure, yeah. And that's the battle that the whole North American volunteer or paid on call or whatever you want to call it, fire department has been battling forever. Is
what's staffing like in Germany, Dirk? In the smaller cities.
Cities are all career departments, and they are staffed. There's a standard, so it has to be 4 guys. Used to be 9 guys on a rig, now it's down to 4 guys. But they struggle the same, like volunteers and stuff like that.
But I was in Karlsruhe, and they said they only had 1 full-time station, and all the rest, 250,000 people, were all part-time on call.
Yeah, well, there were still volunteers. There's no part-time or on-call. They're paid on call. They're all volunteers. They don't get paid, right?
It's a huge city.
Anything over 9, well, everything over 60,000 has to have full-time staff. I'm not sure about the numbers. And all career departments in Germany do EMS. So there's no, just first responders, stuff like that. They all have ambulances. So it's you can't really compare. It's like they throw 250 guys at a structure fire. They have a problem with that. Like there's mutual aid all over the place.
Yeah,
it's a small country. It's a small country with a huge amount of people, right? So they have the same problems getting volunteers, the same as everywhere, right? But I gotta say, back to Yellowknife here, I don't think staffing was the issue there. Because the fire went out. They put the fire out. The 2 people died because somebody was on the structure that wasn't built for that load, right? And I'm not sure. It's really like you can congratulate them for putting out the fire. Unfortunately, 2 people died. So yeah, I don't think it was staffing. It was really maybe just the lack of training, and they thought this is the opportunity, or they believed that vertical works.
Or they didn't know that someone.
Yeah.
Or maybe they didn't know someone was inside when they were on the roof.
What really strikes me there, because it's 2005, but we always forget, like, there wasn't many people with cell phones around, so there's very little pictures. Like, we can't even tell how the structure looked like. Maybe it looked like a very sturdy building, right? I mean, it's a woodworking shop, so they had lots of material. So, and then going up there, sure, why not do a roof ventilation? But as you said, communication, I think, is a big problem. Staffing in that sense for this fire, I don't think it was. The guys did a great job of putting the fire out, right?
Staffing could have become an issue when the rescue operation started.
Right.
After the guys fell through the roof. I mean,
yes.
It doesn't say what the ultimate cause of death was, if it was fall or running out of air or becoming trapped or whatever. And if there's only
7 guys.
if you say there's 10 guys there and 2 of them fall through a roof, it's tough, right?
Well, yeah, you lose 4 guys because the 2 guys that fell down, the 2 guys that were inside the structure, so that's 4 out of 7 to 10. Yeah, that's not much. And then you got a chief there, right?
You got guys operating trucks, and like you run out of guys real fast.
Not really lots to go on. That we have way more information from NIOSH. WCB is very, like, Canada in general is very secretive when it comes to these investigations, if there are any. So that's kind of it's sad, because I mean the sacrifice those guys made, we have to honor that by learning from it. But even if the officials don't want to really learn and just have these vague recommendations that they always do, it's like, and then they were saying $300,000 over 10 years. It's $30,000 for training. Is like, I'm not sure if they know how much training costs, right? Even putting on the course and stuff like that, or inviting an instructor, it costs a lot of money. So yeah, it's too bad that we don't have more information to talk about this.
But at least that's why we're here, to expose what we have and try to get people to think about learning, right? And if it's a little shed, is it worth going on the roof or not, etc.? Are there people inside? So yeah, good discussion.
It
Anybody
also
else?
it talks about having the training level of some of these firefighters and chief officers, and in my experience, the chiefs of these smaller and more distanced from the mainstream fire departments like Yellowknife or up north or small towns, they have certificates coming out the yin yang. They have all their training. They just don't have the life experience to back it up.
Yeah, if you don't have the calls, right?
Yeah. So, and I mean, how do you get that? You have to be on a fire department to get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Similar to that Warwick.
Uh,
Yeah, similar to Warwick, Quebec. I mean, how many barn fires do they get? Once every 3-4 years, right?
Yeah.
So with a propane tank involved, very rarely, right?
that was all volunteers. So in theory, if you get 3 barn fires a year, you could go to all 3 of them.
Right. Yeah.
Yellowknife might get 3 structure fires a year, and you have to be working that day, which there's a 25% chance you are. So there might be 3 fires and you go to none of them, or you're on the ambulance and miss the call or whatever, right? It's
or you're just a white cloud and you don't get fires.
Right. Yep. All right. Well, that's good. We'll wrap up that podcast on the Yellowknife fire. Again, good words of wisdom for everyone. Situational awareness, size up. Again, those are things that maybe didn't happen here, that then led to the risk of the guys falling on top of in the shed to inside and killing both firefighters inside. Thanks for joining us, and stand by for our next episode.